our esteemed speakers for this forum. So, may I call back on stage our esteemed panelists, starting off with Mr. Yanis Utz, Pantera AVP, Head of Sales Engineering, EMEA and APAC. Please join me as well, Mr. Guy Roosevelt, Sangfor Chief Product Officer. Next on my roster, Mr. Jayesh Paniker, Global Sales Engineer of Sophos. We also have Mr. Michael Cadiente, Security Engineer Manager of Checkpoint. Followed by Mr. Jonathan John B. Paz, Vice President, EASO and DPO, Bank of the Philippine Islands. Mr. Rahim Malik, Solutions Consultant, Zscaler Westcon. We have Mr. Chen Jun, Cloud Engagement Director, JPAC Palo Alto Networks. And Mr. Jan Martin Encina, Associate Director, Head of Information Security Governance and Operations of Maya.
And then CJ, yeah, then we skip one seat for Jonathan.
All right, and of course, to moderate the discussion is none other than Rickson Singson Ke, CEO and President, Security Consulting. So, Sir Rickson, I now turn over the floor to you.
So thank you. So guys, let's take our seat. So I know this is the toughest time of the day. After a good meal, we start saying our Thanksgiving and prayer. So I hope you still stick out with us. Not because of the raffle prizes, because these experts, cybersecurity experts, will be sharing with you specific best practice that are tested in the industry. Everyone's subject to what we are calling the hybrid working environment. So businesses now, they rely heavily on the emerging technologies like IoT, cloud, and as a result, many these new emerging technologies, they pose a threat to the IT departments and the IT infrastructure. So while security can never be 100%, intrinsic security and zero trust networking are helping organizations globally in raising their security bar and ensuring that they can stay in business. So during our panel discussion, you have our experts this afternoon who will share their perspective on what organizations must consider to enhance cyber resiliency in this modern business environment. So come on, Jonathan. It's all right. Okay, so since we're talking about digital transformation, we like to throw the first question in our discussion on security as an intrinsic component of digital transformation. So, John from Maya, knowing that digital banks are inborn digital, like they're born digital already compared to the traditional banks that we have. What is one big security strategy that Maya has applied in your transformation, or particularly in your business and digital transformation?
Sure. Is it working? Oh yeah, it is. Okay, so Maya is a bank, right? That's our tagline. It's everything in a bank. But really, 40% of our people are actually software developers. So other than being a bank, we're also a tech company. And you have to understand that we develop our own stuff. 90% of our app are actually locally developed by Filipinos. So
in-house developed?
Yes, correct.
Wow.
That's true. And for security to support that, you'll have to automate a lot of the stuff. So one of the biggest things that we have implemented from a security and consumer protection standpoint is to automate our software security. You have to make sure that it's not the security doing the test. Security is giving there to give governance, but you have to teach your developers how to test, so that they become extensions of you, essentially, and you're there to guide them along the way. Make sure that things don't fall under the cracks, and there's really proper check, still proper check and balance, even if you have empowered them to do their thing.
So thank you for that, John. So a great takeaway is the creation of a security culture. Even if you're inborn digital, your security culture should still be embedded, right? So with that, let's go now to the perspective of a traditional bank. So with us, we have, well, I'll call you JJ. John na lang, sorry. Okay, so BPI is known as a traditional bank, right? It's one of the big banks in the country. So with your bank's transformation strategies, how do you now differentiate from digital banks in terms of security approaches and strategy? Do you still apply the same strategy, or because you're traditional, it's different?
Yeah, actually, I'm a bit uncomfortable with, with the tag traditional.
I'm
because
sorry,
we're trying-
pardon for that.
We're well into our digitalization journey, but I think that the tag or the label traditional comes from us still retaining an extensive branch network. We still have a very robust brick and mortar network. Because we still have clients, no? And there are still legacy products and services that rely on high touch over high tech.
Yes.
So that's something that we, for the foreseeable future, will still be known for having an extensive branch network. But to answer your question on security, on how our strategy, security framework has transformed itself along with our digitalization push. Well, a lot of the the experience of Maya, no? A lot of our services right now, the ones that, specifically for our mobile apps and other online delivery of online services, we do agile technology, and as everyone here knows, no, the traditional security framework doesn't work well with agile, with the concept of CI/CD implementation pipeline. So that's something that we had to evolve as well, to make sure that we don't just pay lip service to security, and that's something that's embedded very early on as part of the business requirements of all our services, and that the security and risk assessments that go along with, which is our prerequisites of a good governing entity or organization, gets to be embedded, gets to be able to follow the same cadence, development cadence, as our online apps, which follows a quick release schedule. So there, we had to evolve and a lot of that. The things that we do, the security assessments remain in place, and they still have to be done, but now on a quicker pace.
Okay. So, John, that means you're adjusting your security strategies and pace with the business. Okay. So what's the terminology or the politically correct term for the non-digital native bank?
Yeah,
What's the
we call ourselves, or we strive to be phygital. Phygital. It's a portmanteau or a combination of physical and digital. We leverage on the digital channels to deliver high volume routine transactions for our customers, while, as I mentioned earlier, retaining that venue for high touch for clients who need that level of comfort, and for products and services that are much more complex that can be delivered properly via online.
So
at least at the moment. Phygital.
So we learned a new term. We don't call them traditional banks. That's politically incorrect. We call them phygital banks. So thank you, John. So now that we've talked about the transformation of our the banking industry itself. But let's consider now most companies. Okay, they start with baseline security. So you start somewhere when you talk about security. And most of the time, you start with your baseline security. And in terms of your investment, you always go for EDR or firewall, right? Usually. So they would ask you, so what do we buy first? In fact, one thing is on the board, when we present, okay, we need budget for EDR. Okay, when we buy that, and then the board would tell you, when we buy that, are we already protected? Oh, no, because the next month I'll be coming out with another firewall investment, and they say, okay, when we buy that, are we already protected? So you see now, it's a challenge, right? No, the mindset of our board as well. But we have with us, we'll start with, of course, two of our experts on the firewall investment side. So we have very, very good brands in Palo Alto and Checkpoint. So mind you, they're very special because during Isog events, we have competitors being cooperative and competition. But of course, with this, I'll ask CJ first on how a strong perimeter defense can provide protection for companies doing digital transformation.
Sure. I'll pick on. I mean, it's a great question, but anyway. So I picked few things from we call perimeter defense, right? So, for example, network segmentations, malware prevention, and threat preventions, access controls, right? DLP. I will classify the DLP as a part of a perimeter defense as well. So this kind of a defense, regardless you are doing on-prem, you are doing a digital transformation, or you're doing a cloud native or born from the cloud, you never change, all right? And you need to have this strong perimeter defense to prevent things get into that environment first. I mean, that is the bottom line principle, period. I mean, it has to do that. Right. So back to the question is yes. I mean, strong perimeter defense. It is critical for the digital transformations.
Thank you, CJ. So, of course, we have another expert in the firewall category. And by the way, both of them are in the leaders quadrant of Gartner. So it's right to compare them. Don't compare them with the unknown firewalls. Okay? Or open source firewall. No, that sounds fair. So anyway, Mike here, okay, the question is how we are moving towards digital transformation, but what security acceleration strategies should an enterprise have to stop threats?
Okay, thank you for that question. So let's start with some of those, what you call, some challenges, right? Usually, why breaches or is incidents still happening? So usually that's the question. But some of those top 3 common, usually we heard is, one, there's still what we call the inadequate defense. When you say inadequate defense, you are, for example, currently, we are on an AI world, right? Or we are on the generation 5 or generation 6 of attack. But eventually, your organization is still on the generation 3 of security. So that's one, inadequate defense. The second thing, what is on the presentation earlier, we're talking about consolidation. But why we need consolidation? We're still talking on the silos approach, right? We still have multiple technology. We are blinded, like we buy and buy technology, but it creates more complexity on the environment. And the third one is probably the skill set, the skill set. Because the technology, it's not installed to forget, right? You need to maintain and manage it. But somehow, you get a good candidate, but you need to train them from like 2-3 years so that they could be good as all aspect what we're expecting. Now, in organization, probably what we need to accelerate, right? We need to have like a comprehensive technology. As Shen mentioned earlier in this presentation, it should be like a prevention first approach, right? The secondly, it should be consolidated. We need to consolidate all this technology, and it should be comprehensive. When you say comprehensive, it should be, it should know where the threat's coming in, and it would probably enforce that needed on that area. Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Mike. So I'll take, I really experienced that in most companies when they install and forget. That works for some of the technology systems that we have, like Windows. You install and then forget about it. It updates itself and all that. But it seems that security, somebody has to be at the back to watch the alerts. It alerts someone and that someone is not there. It's like zero trust. You trust no one is there. No one is even managing the tools. So there's something wrong, right? So that's correct. No? It has to be a comprehensive approach. It's not just the tool. There has to be people behind it. And the people's skills should support the tool. And it's a comprehensive strategy.
Yes, and it should be like an end-to-end, right? You need to secure from ground up to up.
So that's very timely because our next question for Jayesh, I'm sorry, I know this is a bit tough. On the side of the EDR, no? So Jayesh is from Sophos. How can enterprises without enough manpower or even skills, they have a lot of manpower but not security skills, or probably technical skills, or how do you now operate your perimeter and baseline defense?
Well, the short answer to it is just outsource it. So I'll explain.
Straightforward, very straightforward.
So I'll explain why I'm saying that. From a Sophos perspective, we have been seeing this as a challenge for real. So let's take an example. I like to answer with examples. So you must have been seen ransomware as a service, right? So what you basically do, if I'm a customer and I need to attack somebody, I don't need to have the skill set to design the ransomware and do all sorts of stuff. So I just need to contact a hacker who can create a ransomware, and I'll pay him, I'll buy the ransomware from him, and I'll hit the button. Boom, that's it. The person on the other side is hacked, and I don't even need to have a skill set, right? So if we see this from a defense mechanism perspective, let's try to outsource a company or a vendor who can do the defense strategies on your behalf, right? So that is where cybersecurity as a service comes into the picture. So you can have vendors who can do managed detection response. They would be having a real person acting as a SOC on customer's behalf. So they would be doing full-scale incident response, and you just need to focus on your other projects and strategic deals. Yep.
You know, we used to have a quote. If you can't beat them, join them, right? But this time around, if you can't beat them, outsource them. You cannot hire them, you outsource them, right? So I take that from you. You're the author, so I will remember that. Okay, so let's move now to the other layers. Like before the pandemic, of course, the EDR and the firewall seems to be the core already of the security components in the enterprise now. But with the pandemic, they introduced to us to what we call the flavor of remote work, which most of us love, right? And because of that, it seems that the old perimeter that we have in terms of defense has been disrupted. So we like to ask Rahim of Zscaler, with the pandemic and remote work, how should companies now look at securing this new working environment?
Okay, so when we talk about digital transformation, right? Actually, even pandemic, organizations are starting to digitally transform, right? But with pandemic, it accelerates that digital transformation because everyone will go back home, cannot go back to office, and they have to leverage on VPNs. And VPNs can't scale at the point of time because it's like when they do this VPN infrastructure, it's only meant for like maybe, I don't know, few percentage of the employees, right? Then suddenly everyone have to go back home and do work from home. So they are scrambling to invest in this scalable architecture. Yeah, so when we talk about digital transformation, you have also look at the network transformation and also the security transformation also. So just now when you mentioned about EDR, firewalls, we also look at the security in depth, right? You still require firewall. Okay, you still require EDR.
Yes.
Yeah, and you also need to look at your risk program. So you know that threats are always evolving, right? And your business goals, your business initiative always evolving. So you need to work together with your business to understand where's the strategy initiative for the next 4 or 5 years, and you build that cybersecurity roadmap for that organization. Yeah, then you will know, okay, what can I invest in? And of course, when you guys want to invest in a certain technology, you have to look at the security ecosystem, whether we can integrate with all the existing security ecosystem you have. And even if you have all the technologies that you have right here, right now, right, if you don't have the proper process, right, then it also goes to waste. So technology, people, process, these are 3 important things. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Okay, so the PPT formula. Okay, but this is the thing. I was approached the other day by one of my clients, and they said, Do you have a security technology that will bring our people from home back to work? So I'm still looking for that until now. I tried Googling. I even chat GPT it. I can't find the answer. So, but we'll not raise that question here. Probably on Forum 2. So watch out. You have to be here, Forum 2, to know that answer. But anyway, let's go ahead. Taking off from this pandemic, most companies leverage on cloud migration, right? So everybody's loving the cloud now. O365. So your ERP on the cloud, everything on the cloud. In fact, if you tried our ice cream, it's like ice cream on the cloud. So the thing is, not all companies invested in security, particularly cloud security, right? So they invested in security, but it may still be the on-prem security. So where and how should companies start their cloud security journey? So may we ask Guy from Sangfor?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. And to leverage off what Ram said over there is that because of the pandemic, people went to some kind of digital transformation virtually overnight. And in some cases, it was overnight from like Friday to a Monday. That's how bad it was. And the only technology that they could understand from a security perspective was VPN. I have to give people access to VPN. And how am I going to go do that? But before that happened, pre-pandemic, people had already started digital transformation by doing something as simple as going to Office 365 or going to Google Office or whatever it is, and they started moving to the cloud using SaaS applications, right? The problem now is they're trying to re-architect their business and saying, okay, I have to do business continuity. That's what happened during the pandemic. I have to get people up and running. I have to make sure we can still do business. And it was more important to do the business continuity as quickly as possible. Security wasn't even a thought at that point. Now you go into the pandemic a year and a half, you go post-pandemic, and a lot of people who decided to do things in the cloud are getting bit in the butt because they didn't do a lot of simple things they should have done in terms of planning to do security. So the question is, all you people that have already done this kind of digital transformation, what do you do to secure yourself at this point? The big problem is there is no traditional perimeter anymore. The traditional perimeter went away because if I'm working from anywhere and I'm logging into VPN, that's a hole. If I'm logging into a cloud application, that's a hole. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening along the way. So now you have to sit down and you have to step back and look at your strategy. How much of what I need to do is on premise? How much of what I need to do is in the cloud? Once I figure out what that is, then I can say, okay, I have to secure these things a certain way. I have to secure these other things a certain way. But the problem then is it becomes difficult to do a cloud model and an on-premise model, right? So the easiest thing to do is to say, I need to think about something like zero trust. There's no perimeter. I have to give access to resources, but there's no perimeter. So now it becomes a matter of providing least access, least privilege to everybody, giving people the only amount of access they need to get access to the resources they have to go do to do the work, and to be able to audit everything to make sure that you can tell when something bad's happening. That's the first step that you have to go do. A lot of organizations may not be able to go do that. So the second step that you might want to think about doing is basically, as we talked about before, outsourcing security. And you can do that by finding a vendor that has SASE, right? Secure Service Edge. What that means is instead of deploying my own infrastructure on-premise and in the cloud and paying for CapEx or OpEx, someone else has got a cloud that has security built into it, whether it's firewall, a VPN, SD-WAN, whatever you want to go do. You buy a subscription on a per user basis, you go to a dashboard, you configure the policies you want to go do, and all the infrastructure part is taken care of for you, right? All your users log into the cloud through sudo VPN. The cloud takes care of all the connections to other cloud resources and on-premise back to on-premise resources, and it makes things a whole lot easier. But you have to sit back first and figure out where you are and where you need to go. And that's the hardest part to do. And once you figure out where you need to go, you have to figure out, do I have the resources to be able to make that happen? And if you can't, outsource. That becomes the big thing.
If you can't beat them, outsource.
Yep.
So it seems it's initially simple, but that's correct. No? You have to go back into planning. All what Guy has mentioned to you is you cannot take shortcuts anymore. Now, the pandemic is done. the pandemic rush is done. You have reasons not to plan during that time. But now you have the time in the world to do your drafting, blueprinting, road mapping. So you have to do it. If you can't do it, outsource. So I think that's a very good learning that I had today. So if they fail, then they also need to outsource. So they look for somebody to blame. Even the blame can be outsourced. So imagine if you have a company that offers you outsourcing your breach, blame on them. So that's what we call risk transfer. So last, when all the security investments, like we've been talking about EDR, and then firewall, and then you have now cloud security, remote security, they're already in place, but the threats are still coming. In fact, this morning I received another SMS. It's a phishing SMS because I can't understand the link. He wants me to access a link which I cannot understand. So they need to do better work. I think they need to also outsource. But anyway, what security strategy should Phygital enterprises? So it's not just the bank that's Phygital. It's the whole enterprises. So we will not use the word traditional anymore. Phygital enterprises need to embark to ensure security, sustainability, and corporate resilience. Janice, can you take it?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll start with some bad news. That's not very cool, but I think everybody's aware there is no 100% security, right? Even if you invest significant amounts of money, have all your people trained, work with the best outsourcers, have migrated your risk to the cloud, there is no 100% security. And at the end, if customer data gets leaked or internal secrets gets leaked, your brand is going to be damaged. It doesn't matter if it's the fault of an outsourcer. So what would I recommend? I would recommend, as I said before, put yourself in the shoes of the attacker. Take a look at your enterprise. Check your perimeter or whatever remains of it, right? We're in a transitional time today, so cloud is part of the perimeter as I see it. And start validating your defenses. We can discuss, the first step might be your, inside the network, might be your gateway, firewall IPS systems, right? We've heard some vendors here. Let's see if they can actually detect and block current attack techniques. Let's move the next step into the network detection response. For example, ExtraHop is one of the sponsors here. There's other brands out there, but the point is their job is also to detect and alert about malicious activities. And if you install the system and there's no malicious activity on your network, how can you actually tell that it's working, right? You can run some demo attacks or something, but real attacker traffic is something that you don't want to artificially put on your network because it means you would actually be hacked at this very moment. So you need to find a way to do this in a smart way. And next step could be the endpoint security, antivirus, EDR. Again, there's a lot of vendors out there, and I assure you every single data sheet and white paper will claim that the vendor you're speaking to is the best. Right? That's quite obvious. So the question is, which one is actually the best for you? And that's a lot of work. And it also, once you make that selection, it comes down to configuration. I have a war story from Europe, from a recent test that we ran, and the story goes as follows. They had a very good EDR solution, and they had deployed it across their whole enterprise. So I knew I had a tough challenge when I came in to test. But the clients, the workstations, stopped all of the activity, all the code, so that was a good result. And then we went to the server network and found out that they had set their EDR to alert only, because there was a production plant and they were worried if something would happen on the servers, it would actually impact production, which was a big risk for them, right? To stop production would mean loss of money. But what we were able to show is that a ransomware campaign, including encrypting user data, was possible on that network. So that was a big learning, big takeaway for them, that they were actually revisiting their IT strategy after having been confronted with some real life traffic. Let's move this one step further. All of the before mentioned systems, including the clients, would send data to the SIM. So the next question is, does the SIM detect this activity? Does it correlate? Does it wake up the right people at the right time? What's the next step? Is there an incident response process? Which brings me to the SOC. Do these guys, are they actually able to differentiate between what is normal and what is the malicious activity, right? So we need to train these guys. We need to validate. We need to constantly recheck that all of this is going well. And I would say only when we're at that stage can we say we've done our best, right? That's really what all of this is about. As I said, there's no 100%, but I think we cannot get in trouble if we can confidently say we've done our best, we've tested, we know what we have is working as far as technology goes today.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I would think that the best security is not about how much money you have and how much you can really invest, right? I think it's going to be drill down to how well you understand the threats that are applicable to you. There's a universe of threats out there, right? But not all of them will have the same impact to the same organization. So we're going to have to really fall back to old school risk management. Like what's the impact? What's the likelihood that this thing is happening? Which of my assets are going to be hit? Is this going to close my company? And am I going to lose my license to operate if I get hit by this? So I think it's also a matter of prioritization, and it's a reality that not that we have security budgets. It's funny because we saw a graph that security budgets are increasing, right? But what are CISOs saying? It's not increasing enough. We need more, right? And so it's really going to be a matter of prioritization, how you're going to stop those threats from happening to you.
So there's no 100% security, plus your budget is decreasing, and you're expected to do more. So now we are called cybersecurity magicians. Okay, so we have to accept that new role, but that is true. No, we cannot stop everything. Okay, but I will tell you on the perspective of our. We have actually a hidden guest, no? But you cannot see it's hidden. No? So I asked our guests on the side of the hackers, the other side of the fence, what this hidden guest wants to share with you is they did their digital transformation right. Do you know when you get hacked and then you had difficulty paying in Bitcoin, there's a pop-up that would come out and it would help you, coach you on how to create your own Bitcoin account. And then how do you now load money? You can actually call a hotline to help you. I mean, we can't do that in the enterprise. How were they able to create such a perspective on how to do customer experience?
They answer in 5 seconds.
Exactly. And they verify your payment. We receive your payment. We're sending you the key. So we have to learn as well, not only on the side of our security experts, but also from the side of the other fence of how they're doing digital transformation right. And I guess we give you that level of experience from each of these experts that we have in the panel. But that other expert on the other side of the fence is doing a bit much better than we are. So we have to step it up. Okay? So our job as security experts will not end. So we'll ask each one of our experts for their key takeaways for you. So we call that baon. for our foreign counterparts. Baon is you bring it home. So they bring it home, your wise wisdom, your wise words. So we'll start with John, and then as we move towards everybody else.
Okay, so I think it has been beaten to death, no? The cliche, security is everyone's responsibility. But it has never been true, and it's not just within the organizations themselves that should bear that responsibility, but also everyone, including
customers.
especially the customers. No? Unfortunately, the reality is fraud has increased commensurate to the adoption of online services. And so it is something, it's a reality, and it is frustrating for somebody who is looking at the numbers on a weekly, monthly basis, and then reporting them to our stakeholders. It's something that's really frustrating, and I cannot just imagine the impact on the victims themselves, who are more often than not actually choose not to report because there's an element of shame. So security is something that should be, relies a lot on how effective we are, security practitioners and advocates, on getting the message across that there's a way to protect yourself, that it's not something that happens to other people and won't ever happen to us. In fact, I always tell our stakeholders that fraud is an equal opportunity crime. The smartest can't get defrauded as often as the least educated. There's a lot of factors, including just being busy, being caught at a bad time of day, etc. So it's something I think that every one of us, it's a cliche, but it often gets lost in the excitement, sexy nature of cybersecurity, the awareness component, and it's something that everybody should really spend and invest on to make sure that online services get to be enjoyed not just for the features that they bring, but also but also being safe in doing so.
Thank you, John. John?
Yeah, building on John's message on education, I think that will be my last message for today. Continue upskilling. Because technology will evolve, the threat actors will evolve. I mean, seriously, we are in companies. We're not just dealing with security. In our companies, we're dealing with mentoring, coaching. We're dealing with admin stuff, filing leaves, attending a lot of these things. But your adversaries are hitting you 24/7. Understanding the cloud, understanding your APIs, understanding how things work, understanding the technology behind what they're trying to compromise. So if there is an asymmetry and imbalance of skill and ability, and that's leaning towards the adversary side, then the defenders has no chance, right? I think it's very important that we really keep ourselves updated with what's happening. We need to really get ourselves up to speed with what the current technologies are, with what the current products are. Benchmarking will always be important. Research and practice will be very important. I mean, quite honestly, right? If you are in any of your cloud accounts like Azure, AWS, have you ever touched your AWS accounts? Have you even seen an EC2 instance? Right? I think upskilling and being educated and being up to date will definitely help you. It doesn't help just you, but you also become basically an ambassador. You can pass on that knowledge, and once we get more security people on board, and maybe we can close that 3.6 million open jobs globally, right?
Thank you, Ambassador John. Okay, so let's move to CJ.
Okay, so for me, it's really about the concept of called presumed to be compromised, right? So it's very important to design for cyber resiliency kind of architecture. So today, it's really not about how I can, as our friend mentioned about this, no 100% on the security. It's really not about how can prevent every of the attack, but it is about how fast you can isolate that kind of attacks. And when you do the isolate and it contains that kind of compromise, it shouldn't be impact on your business. And as we call cyber resiliency. And it's very important thing here is presumed to be compromised. If you have that kind of concepts in mind, and you will design your entire architecture to be cyber resiliencies. That's what I want. Yeah.
Thank you, CJ. So Rahim?
Yeah. To me, as what like Ma'am Marikis just now when the opening speech, right? We mentioned about like the more you expand your environment, the broader your attack surface is. And the broader the attack surface is, as just one breach will be enough to crumple your business. Yeah, and we look at the motive of the attackers, right? Whether it's financial, whether reputation. So this is all very important. It's part of your intellectual property also, as part of your organization. Yeah, so to me, I still stand on the never trust, always verify. So we talk about zero trust architecture. Even in real life, without us knowing also, right, we actually run about on this motto, never trust, always verify. Let's say, for example, CJ told me about something about a gossip, right? I can't just agree on him. Okay, I need to validate. So this is part of our lifestyle. So leverage on this never trust, always verify motto on your risk program. Then I believe that everything will fall in place. Yeah.
You know, I tried the zero trust on my wife. And then when I was knocking at the door, she said, if you're really Rickson, what am I wearing on our first date? And I can't answer. So I slept outside. So that's zero trust. So
that's a good context.
Mike?
Okay, take away, maybe if you cannot beat them, outsource them. No, kidding aside. One of the three key takeaways from this discussion, right, as I heard about, of course, we're thinking about understand the environment, right? You need to understand what you really need, then plan out. Then, of course, moving towards it, how would your cyber resiliency or defenses could be, right? It probably, as I mentioned earlier, it should be like a comprehensive approach, like it's an end-to-end. Not just, I need only a firewall, I need only the EDR, but we view the holistic point of view. If you're, as mentioned by our friend from Paymaya, like, if this is the big part of your organization, your security must have a bigger, must cope up with the business that you have. Okay, so that's. Thank you.
Hey, Jayesh?
Yep, sure. So I'll just add to what this gentleman said. So you may be having many solutions in place and they will give you a better outcome. But the good thing would be if all those security tools and products are there, and if they are managed from a single place, it becomes even easy for the customers to manage it. So I would say that, yeah, there are so many vendors out there. You have so many options to choose from. Just feel free to come and discuss your problems, and I'm sure each one of us has something for you to offer. Yep.
Hey, thank you, Jayesh.
Stay safe and stay vigilant. Yep.
And then Guy?
You're all doomed. Seriously, think about what Rickson said. If you look at the bad guys, they've got great customer service. They went to digitalization, did a great job because they've got lots of time, they've got lots of resources, they've got lots of expertise. How many people here in this room are understaffed and need more people to support the security activities? Raise your hands. Okay, it should be like everybody. Right? And that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now is there's not enough expertise in every organization that's here. Whether you think you have enough or not, you don't. There's over 2.5 million empty security expert slots globally that are unfunded or empty because there's just not enough people to fill them. So a lot of organizations think they know what they're doing, but they're too proud or too arrogant, whatever it is, to ask someone else for help to make them go where they need to go. So we're always going to be behind because the bad guys are always going to be ahead of us in terms of figuring out how to do bad things. And the minute we as security vendors figure out, reverse engineer what they did, they've already gone to something else. So it's always a stepping stone game, and us, the good guys, are going to be behind all the time. All right, that means you guys have to be smarter in terms of making sure you figure out where your vulnerabilities are, your attack surfaces are, and do everything you can to close them down. And again, if you don't have the resource, you don't have the expertise, find people that you can outsource to, because they will be able to work with you until such time as you guys can get that level of expertise. All right? But don't think you can do it by yourself, because no matter who you are, big or small, you can't do it by yourself right now. And even governments are having problems like that. And the last part here is, we talked about training. You can train all day long, you can train everybody in your organization, but as I like to say, you can't fix stupid. Because there's always going to be one person in your organization that doesn't listen, does do what they want to go do. They're going to click on some link. And I'll tell you something. There's a study that shows that 40% of security professionals out here have actually clicked on a phishing link because we were too tired and whatever it was, or too distracted to know any better and did something stupid, okay? So stupid is always going to come back and get you. So you can only do the best that you can. Nothing's 100% secure. You have to do the best planning that you can to try to stop as much as you can, but you need to put things in place that says, I'm already breached. I need to figure out how to find out where that is so I can get rid of it as quickly as possible, because the longer it takes for you to find it and the longer it takes for you to fix it, the more expensive it is to you, okay? And according to IBM, what is it they're talking about now? I think the cost of a breach now is somewhere on the order of like $6 million for mid to large size organizations, so.
Thank you, Guy. And finally, Janice.
Thank you. Yes, and I have to admit I have clicked on a phishing link. It was an internal test, and I realized the moment I clicked that this was not legit. It was just too many emails in too little time. But no, all jokes aside, my takeaway for you guys is to ask yourselves, am I secure, right? And my advice for this is validate, remediate, repeat, so you can get one step closer to saying confidently, I am secure, as it says on the lanyard, right? Thank you.
So thank you, Janice. So I'm sorry we don't have that much time anymore. So I'll leave you with an acronym, which is Isog. IT should outsource good. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.